Hey folks, I'm Dennis. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for watching my video. Today I'm going to show you how to change the oil in a 2007 to 2011 Toyota Camry with a 2.4 liter four-cylinder in it. Let's get started. Now, what you're going to need for this job is you're going to need a jack. You're going to need a jack stand. I prefer to have some rubber gloves so I can keep the oil off my hands. You probably will need a filter wrench, a couple of different kinds. You've got these plier type, you've got the small diameter type that you can use with a ratchet. There's also a band type that goes around the wrench, it loosens it up, or goes around the filter and loosens it up. You're going to need a 14mm wrench. You're going to need oil, 4.5 quarts for this engine with a filter. And then you're going to need a filter. On the Fram filter, it takes an XG4386. You can cross-reference that to other brands if you've got a brand that you prefer, but the 4386 filter is what this engine uses. And you're going to need an oil drain pan. You can use a creeper if you need one, or if you have one. If you don't, you'll be alright without it. Now if your Camry doesn't have an air dam, you can probably use drive-on ramps. This Camry is an SE and it's got an air dam on the front, which sets too low to be able to use ramps, so I have to jack the car up from the side. You can use a jack that comes with the car, or you can use a floor jack or any other jack that you have, as long as you jack it up safely. In order to jack mine up safely, what I do is I use a floor jack and I jack it up from the frame member underneath the car. Before you jack the car up, be sure to set the emergency brake and chock the wheels. Once you have the car jacked up, be sure to put a jack stand under the car for your safety. And then let the car down on the jack stand. Now when I jack the car up, I jack it up on the driver's side. And the reason I do that is because the oil drain plug underneath is on the passenger side, and that's going to send all the oil in the oil pan to the passenger side of the car, and it's going to drain well. Once you have this car safely jacked up, then you want to release the hood. The hood release on this car is right here on the dash. Just pull that back and that releases it. Just to the right of the emblem is the safety release that you have to push up, and that'll let you raise the hood. This is a release. I always pull the dipstick and take the oil filler cap off. It may not make any difference at all, but it makes me feel like the oil drains better. Now it's time to go underneath. Alright, the drain plug on this engine is right here. That's where you're going to take your 14mm wrench and remove the drain plug and drain into your oil drain pan. Now remember, when you're taking something loose, it's lefty loosey, righty tighty, so counterclockwise. So take it loose. Make sure you've got your drain pan lined up. Alright, get it loose, and then once I feel that it's loose, and I pull it out of the way real quick like that. Keeps me from getting a fistful of oil. Sorry about the wind noise if you're getting a little bit, and the crow that's flying around out here. I'm outside and it's a little cool and windy today, so the crows are out and the wind's blowing. Once the drain gets down to, where it's like a kind of a hair-sized stream, or it's drips, that's as much as you're going to get out of there realistically. And it's okay if there's a little bit left in there, because you're never going to get all the residual oil out of the engine anyway. The lifters are full and things like that. So anyway, this is fine. Once it gets to this point, it's fine. One of the things you should do when you've got your drain plug out is there's a washer, rubber or a fiber washer on the the back side of the drain plug, you should make sure that it's still intact and not cracked or anything like that, because that keeps your oil from leaking out of the pan. If it is, then you need to get a new one and replace it. You can normally get those at the parts stores, or you can order them online. So now that I'm down to a hairline stream, I'm going to stop it because the wind is also blowing this. I don't want to get oil everywhere. So, and that's plenty of oil to drain out of the engine. So I'm going to tighten that back up. Now, if you've had other people changing your oil before now, this thing's probably going to be really tight to get loose. They don't have to be that tight. I'll give you the torque spec below, but just know that the first time you take this loose, it may take a little bit to get it broken loose, because the shops tend to over tighten them a lot. Okay, now the filter on this car is hard to film. Here's the oil pan, there's the drain plug going forward. Right where this cutout on the shroud is, just in front of the drain pan, is the filter. It's right here. So if you have one of those cup filter wrenches, then you're going to probably need an extension on your ratchet so you can get down below the shroud. I usually just take it off by hand, but there's enough room to get in there with, you can get up above this member here with a wrench if you need to. I won't be able to show you exactly the filter coming out because I can't get my hand up in there in the camera. I'll do my best to show at least most of it. What I do is I get my drain pan under the filter. With this engine, it's a little bit of a pain in the tail because this filter is completely upright. So when you take it loose, you generally get a lot of oil dripping everywhere like that. So I loosen it up, let it drain for a minute, let the oil in the top of the filter come on out. Then I'll finish taking it off the rest of the way. Then I can go ahead and loosen it up and then bring it out vertically like this so it doesn't spill everywhere. Then you can, because you'll see some oil come out of there, then you can tip it up and put it in your tray. Now I take the new filter. It's got a rubber ring on it right here. You have to put a little bit of oil on that rubber ring so that it seals up against the block. A lot of people say you should only use new oil for that. It really doesn't matter. You're going to put about 2 drops of oil on this ring, and it's not going to go into the engine. It's just used to seal this rubber ring. You've still got residual oil in the engine, so a couple drops here or there is not going to hurt a thing. So I take my finger and I dip it in the old oil that I just drained, and I take my new filter and I just rub it around there like that. Just enough to lubricate that seal, enough so it'll seal up. That's all you're trying to do. And then be careful not to bump that seal on anything nasty between now and putting it on the engine. You don't want to set it face down or anything like that. You just go straight up with it, and then same thing, you're going to turn it clockwise to thread onto the stud on the engine block. And then what I do is I spin it on until I feel that rubber gasket make contact with the block, and then I give it another half a turn, and that's it. That's as tight as you need to be, and it's not going to leak if you do that. Again, a lot of shops will put it on there and they'll crank it on there so tight that you almost can't get it off when it's time for your next oil change, and it's really unnecessary. All you're trying to do is make a seal. Alright, that's it for the bottom. At this point, I take my jack stand and my jack out from under the car. It's easier to work under the hood with it down. Alright, one of the things I forgot to mention you're probably going to need is a funnel. Some people can do it without a funnel, not me. I'm kind of klutzy. So we've already got the oil drain cap out. On these engines, the filler holes are very shallow, so I end up having to hold the funnel while I pour into it. Now you could probably take one and cut it off short so that it would actually set in there. I don't do that because I need the longer spout on some of my other cars. So I'll just kind of either prop it and pour into it, or I'll hold it. If somebody else has got a better way of doing that, I'm all for it, and please share it. I use Valvoline. You can use whatever kind of oil you choose. I like 50-30. This car takes 4.5 quarts on an oil change with a filter. I don't recommend ever changing the oil without changing the filter. On all my vehicles, you've always got a sticker up here, and I always write down on each one of them with a Sharpie how many quarts it takes with a filter. So it's a little tip that I use so I don't have to look it up every time. So this is a 5-quart jug. If I poured it down to here, it'll be 4 quarts, down to here it'll be 4.5, so I just have to watch it as I pour. Then I'll check and see I've still got 1.5 quarts left to go. Once you get close, you want to be careful not to overfill it. So what I'm doing is I'm pouring a little bit and I'm checking against the scale to make sure that I get the right amount of oil in there. Just a little bit more. And that leaves me 1/2 quart, so that should check out just right. Now before you, should have mentioned this earlier, is you're getting ready to change the oil. When you open up the hood, if all of this is dirty and nasty, you want to wipe that off before you take the filler cap off. If you spill any oil while you're pouring it, do your best to clean that off, because it'll attract dirt and that just turns into sludge and grime. Which doesn't really hurt anything, it just makes it nasty to work on next time. Next thing you want to do, make sure your cap is tight, put your dipstick back in, and then you want to crank the car, start it, let it run for just 20 to 30 seconds, just enough to get the oil pressure up and to fill up the oil filter. Some people will prime the oil filter before they put it on there. They will pour oil into it. You can do that if you want, it just makes a mess to me. So the engine only runs for a second to get the oil filter full. So anyway, crank it up, let it run for just a few seconds, and then shut it back off. Alright, so what that's done is that's brought the oil pressure up, filled the oil filter full of oil, and now the oil is draining back down into the pan. The dipstick goes down into the pan to measure how much oil is in the pan, and it's calibrated for the depth of the oil pan on this particular engine. So what you're doing basically is you're letting all the oil drain back down into the pan so you can get a proper reading on the dipstick. I'm going to pull it out first and show you how this works. Most dipsticks are very similar. Some are a little different. Some of them will have hatched marks, lines telling you where the oil is low or whatever. On the Camry, it's just got 2 marks. It's got 2 dots. One means it's low, one means it's full. Anything over the full line is bad. Anything below the low line is bad. If you're in between, that signifies a quart. So, you know, if you ever check your oil and it's like down to here, that means you're 1/2 quart low. If it's all the way down to the bottom dot, it means you're a quart low. So what you want when you finish an oil change is basically to be right up here at this top dot. So now that we've given the oil a few seconds to drain back into the pan, we're going to check it. You pull it out, wipe it off first so you get a good reading. Put it in the tube and run it all the way down until it goes to the stop. And then pull it out, and then understand it's going to have some oil on it. Okay, so I'm just a touch below the top dot. I could leave it or top it off. I'll probably top it off just a little bit. I'm going to check it again just to make sure, because I don't want to overfill it. Yes, so I'm just a shade underneath, so I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit more in there and check it. And now you see I'm right at the top dot, so that's perfect. Put your dipstick back in, make sure it's all the way seated. Put the cap back on. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to crank the car and look up underneath where the drain plug and the oil filter are just above, and I'm going to watch for leaks to make sure that I don't have any leaks underneath. Next thing to do is to reset the computer so that the maintenance required light that comes on telling you need an oil change goes off. So first thing I'm going to do is turn the car on. I'm not gonna start it. I'm just going to turn it on. And of course there's the maintenance required light. What you got to do is make sure that your odometer is set to the trip odometer, the A. It'll say trip A, and then it'll have your mileage on there. And then turn the car off, completely off. Then what you're going to do is you're going to hold down the trip button, or the odometer reset button, and turn the car on, and that'll reset the maintenance required light. Alright, I'm going to hold the odometer reset button in, and I'm going to turn the car on, and I'm going to continue to hold the reset button in, and I'm going to turn the car back off. Then I can let go of the button, and then when I turn the car back on, let the computer reset, then the maintenance required light is off. So that's how you reset it. What I do with my used oil is I save the jug that I used. So I'll take an empty one of these jugs and I'll pour my used oil into the jug, and then I take a Sharpie and I write on the jug used oil, and then I take that to my local parts house and they'll recycle it, and then you're finished. This oil change procedure works for any of the 2.4 liter Camrys from 2007 to 2011. Thanks for watching my video, I really appreciate it. Please give me a like and hit the subscribe button below if you would, and share my videos around. It really helps me out a lot and I appreciate it. I have to say I'm very humbled and appreciative of all the support that all of you folks have given me. My channel's growing, and I get a lot of feedback from people like you, and I really appreciate it. So thanks a lot, and God bless.